On them, whereas if you call the Freedom Project, well then you're phoning on, you're phoning about your pets so that they'll be safe, but at the same time you're taking that first step into admitting that something's wrong.
Yes. My name's Claire and I work for Dogs Trust. I run a project called the Freedom Project, which is a pet fostering service for women and families fleeing domestic violence. The service has been up and running since 2004 in Greater London, and we also run a service in Yorkshire and Hertfordshire. Basically, the service was set up to enable women and their families to escape domestic violence, as we knew at the time that we set the service up that many women were staying in violent situations for fear of what might happen to their pets if they left them behind. And there are very few options open to women and families in terms of having somewhere to look after their pets. In certain situations, the pet is abused as well, or used as a tool within the family by the perpetrator to manipulate them and intimidate them. We hear some shocking stories where animals have physically been abused.
My name's Sarah-Jane Honeywell, and at the moment I'm known as being a preschool kids TV presenter on Tickabilla and Higgledy House on CBeebies. But the reason I'm here today is to talk about the Freedom Project because, about 13 years ago I found myself in a situation. I had 2 cats and I was in an abusive relationship, and really I stayed in that relationship for about 1.5 years, and the final boiling point, really, the final nail in that relationship's coffin was the fact that he picked up one of the cats and threw it at the wall. So I felt I had to get out of this situation. I mean, I knew I did anyway, but you can deny that someone's hurting you, but then when they hurt something that you really care about, then you have to do something about it. But I also knew that if I finished with him, he would take the cats off me and maybe hurt them. So I didn't know about the Freedom Project, so what I did was I found homes for the cats, lied to him and told him that I couldn't deal with the cats anymore and I was really stressed out and work was too difficult to look after the cats properly. So I found them a home, actually out in Seaford, near the seaside. So it was a really nice home, but it was so traumatic for me to get rid of them. And then I finished with him, and that proved to be a good thing that I did because he turned even worse after I finished with him. And yeah, I really wish that I'd known about the Freedom Project then, because I could have kept the 2 things in my life that were actually stable and secure and gave me love. And I guess I felt guilty that I'd allowed him to hurt the animals. It's one thing if someone's hurting you, because you can deal with it, but if you then allow them to hurt something that you really do love, then that's a different matter. I don't know, 5 months later, my dad bought me a kitten because I was still missing my cats and crying. And he called me up, the guy, and said that he wanted to come and get some of his stuff that he said he'd left there. And stupidly, I said, okay, that's fine, you can come and get your stuff, because I thought, I'm over him, I can cope with this, it's my home. And when he came, he weed on my cat, which was really awful. So I'm glad I did. Although I was devastated at getting rid of my cats, I was glad because I knew that he'd have stolen them out of the garden. He'd have just picked them up from the street. Yeah. So that's very true, that does happen in those situations, that they just wait for you.
Of course, because they know it's something that's really close to your heart.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the issues that we take on board quite seriously with the Freedom Project, in the sense that when we've taken the pet onto the project, it's essential that we have kind of confidentiality clauses and processes and procedures. And one of the things that we explain to clients when they're kind of referring themselves, or when social services or the police might be referring, one of the main points for them is we explain to them, because of confidentiality, they're not able to see their pet whilst we're looking after it. Yeah. And that's safety for the foster carer that gets involved, and also for the client.
I always said, I don't know why people stay. Why do they stay? That's ridiculous. But once you're there, it's so confusing. It's so confusing.
Domestic violence situation is about control and manipulation and power, and this is kind of what it's all about in terms of dynamics. And obviously in some relationships, women can kind of get used to that power, or someone being more influencing over them, and say them more influencing over the other person.
Yeah.
So they kind of get used to how the relationship dynamic goes. But I think in a lot of situations it escalates, and it's recognising that.
Yeah, it's true actually when you say about manipulation. If someone's hit you, deep down you know that's wrong. You know, you have a bruise, you have a physical sign that you've been hurt. When someone's mentally twisting things and abusing you, you can't always tell that that's happening because it's confusing and there's no physical evidence of it. I was never going to tell my mum and dad, and then when I finally finished with him and had to give the cats away, and I was on the phone to my dad and I was crying and said I miss my cats and it's just been awful, and my dad said, "Why did you end it?" And I said, "Oh Dad, it's complicated, you know, don't worry about it." And he said, "But he's such a nice man, could you not have him back?" And it was only then that I thought, "Oh no, I'm going to have to tell him." And so I just said, "Dad, look, I'm fine, I don't want you to worry," but he was a bit violent, and so that's why I had to get rid of the cats, and that's why it's over and I could never have him back. And my poor dad, he just didn't know how to deal with it, and he just went, oh, well, I love you, bye." Put the phone down.
If anything that we've said today rings true with you, and you think that you might be in an abusive situation, then first of all you must get advice and help from a domestic violence service, and you can do that by ringing the domestic violence helpline. If you then feel that you want to leave that abusive situation and you have pets that you want looked after, then you can access the Dogs Trust Freedom Project by phoning us direct, and we can help you and your pets.
If what I've been saying rings true for you, then the only advice I can give you is they won't change and you can't make it better for them. I certainly thought that I could help him with his anger, and all that happened was I got hurt and my cats got hurt. So you'll never change them, you can't help them, so leave them. I think the Freedom Project is such an important project because A, it means you can protect your animals if you're in a vulnerable situation, and B, I think it's a really good first step into becoming free of abuse.